Ever get that feeling? Like you're stuck on a hamster wheel, just grinding away, putting in all the hours, but, well, never really feeling like you're in charge of your own time, your life.
Like that reward, that chance to actually enjoy everything you're working for is always kind of somewhere off in the distance.
Exactly. That feeling, it's something a lot of people feel, I
It
think.
really is. And that endless grind feeling. That's pretty much exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, we are. We're doing a deep dive into a book that, well, really shook things up. Timothy Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek.
Ah, yes. A classic of the genre now, almost.
Right, but get this, its origin story is kind of wild. It was turned down by 26 publishers, 26 out of 27.
Wow. Seriously.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And a huge bookseller apparently told them it wouldn't, hit the mainstream, didn't see the appeal.
Which is just, well, looking back now, it's pretty incredible considering the impact it had.
Totally. I mean, the fact that you, listening right now, ask us to cover this book, that kind of says it all about how relevant it still feels.
It does. It really struck a chord.
And the core idea, it really pushes back against some fundamental stuff we assume about work, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It basically says, look, you don't necessarily have to grind for decades or, become a millionaire overnight to actually design a life with way more freedom, more flexibility.
Yeah, he even came up with that term, the new rich. It's not about being mega wealthy in the traditional sense.
Exactly. It's a mindset shift, really.
Yeah.
Moving away from needing this huge pile of cash before you can live well, and instead figuring out how to optimize your time and income strategically so you can start living that life. Like now.
It's about questioning that whole work till you drop then retire thing, the deferred life plan.
That's the phrase he uses, yeah, the deferred life plan. And the book really interrogates that. Why put off joy? Why defer living?
Which leads straight into one of the big concepts, mini retirements.
And what's cool here isn't just, hey, take long vacations, it's the psychological shift. Instead of this one massive vague goal way down the line.
Retirement, yeah.
Right. Instead of that, you plan for these shorter but significant chunks of time off, sprinkled throughout your career.
So you get a taste of the reward much earlier.
Precisely. It's like sampling the retirement lifestyle along the way.
Yeah.
It can be super motivating, actually. Keeps the dream alive,
Okay, but to even get your head around taking, say, a month or two off, that takes some doing, which is where fear setting comes in.
Ah, yes, fear setting. It's like the flip side of goal setting. Really interesting tool.
So instead of just thinking positive thoughts.
Right, instead of only focusing on the best case, you systematically look at what you're actually afraid might happen if you, say, quit your job or negotiate remote work.
How does that work exactly?
Well, the book lays out these 4 questions. First, define the nightmare. Like, what's the absolute worst case scenario? Realistically, be specific.
Right. Scary, but okay.
Then second, what good things might happen if you actually try? What's the potential upside?
Right, balance it out.
Third, if the worst does happen, what could you do to repair the damage? How reversible is it, really?
Okay, contingency planning. Makes sense.
And fourth is what's crucial. What's the cost, emotionally, financially, physically, of not doing anything, of staying put?
Ugh, that hits home. Because sometimes doing nothing feels safe, but
inaction has its own price, often a hidden one. Ferriss argues it's often the biggest risk. Losing potential growth, experiences, happiness. That's a huge cost.
So confronting the fear actually helps you move past it.
That's the idea. It often makes the fear seem much more manageable, less like this big amorphous monster.
Which then frees you up to think about what you actually want. And the book says get specific, right? Not just vague happiness.
Exactly. Move beyond fuzzy goals. This is where dreamlining comes in. It's a really practical exercise.
Okay, tell us about dreamlining.
So you map out timelines, maybe 6 months and 12 months, and you brainstorm concrete dreams, things you want to do, like learn tango in Buenos Aires, things you want to have, maybe a specific piece of tech, or things you want to be, like fluent in Spanish, tangible stuff.
Not just be rich.
Right. Then, and this is the key part, you figure out the monthly cost of making each of those dreams happen. Add it all up, and that gives you your target monthly income, your TMI.
Ah, okay. So it connects the dreams directly to a required cash flow, not some huge lump sum.
Precisely. It makes huge goals feel way more achievable. That trip around the world might only cost X dollars per month, which suddenly feels different than needing, $1 million in the bank.
And you focus on the most impactful dreams.
Yeah, he suggests identifying maybe the 4 or 5 dreams that would truly be game changers for your life, the ones that really excite you.
Okay, so you define the fear, define the dream, but it's not all just planning, is it? There's this idea of comfort challenges too.
Little things. Intentionally doing stuff that makes you slightly uncomfortable on a regular basis.
Like what?
Oh, could be anything. Proposing a solution at work instead of just asking your boss's opinion. Making eye contact with strangers for a few seconds longer than usual. Lying down in a public place for 10 seconds. Stuff that pushes your social boundaries just a tiny bit.
Why, though? What's the point of that?
It's about building resilience. Conditioning yourself for the discomfort that inevitably comes with doing unconventional things, like negotiating remote work or taking a mini retirement. It expands your comfort zone incrementally.
So you're less likely to freak out when bigger challenges come along.
Exactly. Because the book makes this really interesting point. The real enemy for the new rich isn't failure, it's boredom.
Boredom, really?
Yeah, that feeling of being stuck, unchallenged, even if you're comfortable, that low-grade dissatisfaction day after day, that's seen as more damaging than occasionally trying something and having it not work out.
That's a paradigm shift right there.
It is, and it perfectly sets up the first big pillar of the book's practical framework, which he calls DEAL. D-E-A-L. Definition, elimination, automation, liberation.
Okay, deal. Let's start with E for elimination. This sounds like cutting things out.
It is. It's all about ruthless efficiency. Working smarter, dramatically reducing the stuff that doesn't matter. And the cornerstone here is the Pareto principle.
Ah, the 80-20 rule. I've heard of this.
Right. It's surprisingly common. The idea is that roughly 80% of your results, your income, your happiness, whatever, often comes from only about 20% of your inputs, your efforts, your clients, your activities.
So most of what we do doesn't actually move the needle much.
Pretty much, yeah. The book really pushes you to analyze. Where does your income really come from? What activities actually consume most of your productive time? And then focus laser-like on that critical 20% and find ways to cut out, delegate, or automate the other 80%.
He gives his own example, right, with his supplement company.
Yeah, Brain Quicken. He realized a tiny fraction of his wholesale customers were bringing in almost all the profit, but he was spending most of his time dealing with the small, problematic ones. Same with advertising. A few ads were driving most sales.
So he cut the low-yield customers and focused his ad spend. Makes sense.
It freed up massive amounts of his time and actually increased profits. It's a powerful concept.
And this ties into another law. He talks about Parkinson's law.
Parkinson's law. Simple but profound. Work expands to fill the time available for its completion.
So if you have all day to do a task,
it'll probably take you all day, even if it could realistically be done in, say, 2 focused hours. The book uses this to critique the standard 9 to 5. Is all that time really necessary, or does it just encourage busy work and inefficiency?
Right. We find ways to fill the time because it's there.
Exactly. So the implication is, if you give yourself less time for tasks, you force yourself to be more focused, more decisive, just more efficient. Cut the fluff.
Okay, so limit the task time, which probably requires managing information overload too. That leads to the low information diet.
Bingo. Yeah, the low information diet. This is about being super intentional about what information you consume, taking breaks from constant news cycles, social media scrolling, and especially batching email.
Batching email, like only checking at certain times.
Yeah. The book famously suggests checking email maybe just twice a day, like noon and 4 p.m., something like that. And maybe tackling your single most important task before you even open your inbox, ideally before 11 a.m.
Whoa, that feels radical today. We're all conditioned to be constantly responsive.
It is radical. But the logic is sound. It's about protecting your focus, reducing stress, and not letting reactive stuff derail your actual priorities. You control your attention, not the other way around.
Okay, I can see the appeal. What about interruptions from, actual people, colleagues, bosses, the time thieves?
Ah, yes, handling interruptions. Crucial for elimination. The book suggests things like, using headphones as a do not disturb signal, even if nothing's playing.
Subtle. I like it.
Or having a polite but firm script like, I'm right in the middle of something, how can I help quickly? Or suggesting they email you if it's not urgent. Setting boundaries.
Steering things towards asynchronous communication like email.
Exactly. Protecting those blocks of focused work time is key.
And the last bit under elimination, batching tasks.
Right. Grouping similar, maybe less critical tasks together, like make all your phone calls in one block, process all your expense reports at once, answer non-urgent emails during those scheduled email times.
Avoids context switching, right? That mental gear shifting that drains energy.
Precisely. Keep similar tasks bundled to maintain momentum and efficiency.
Okay, so that's elimination. 80-20 rule, Parkinson's law, low info diet, managing interruptions, batching. It's about cutting the waste.
Clearing the decks, which then makes space for the next letter in deal, A, for automation.
Automation. This is where the passive income idea really comes in, isn't it? Creating systems that work for you.
Exactly. This is about building or finding your muse, as Ferriss calls it. A business, usually something scalable and often online, that can generate income without requiring your direct, hour-by-hour involvement.
The goal being that Renaissance minimalist lifestyle he mentions, having the income and the time.
That's the ideal, yeah. More time for learning, travel, hobbies, whatever drives you.
And he suggests product creation as a pretty accessible route to this muse, especially information products.
Yeah, he leans heavily into information products, think ebooks, online courses, guides, software, templates.
Why those specifically?
Well, compared to physical products, they usually have much lower startup costs, no inventory to manage, super easy digital delivery, infinite replication, just way fewer logistical headaches, and often higher profit margins.
Okay, lower barrier to entry, potentially. But how do you even come up with an idea for one of these muses?
The book gives a few good starting points. One is scratching your own itch. What problems or frustrations do you have that you could solve? What skills do you have that others would pay to learn?
So personal experience is key.
Often, yeah. Or you could interview experts in a niche field and package their knowledge. Or even share your own story of overcoming a challenge, how you learned guitar, lost weight, found a job, whatever. People relate to those journeys.
So you find an idea. What's next? Just build the whole thing.
No, definitely not. That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
Test first. The book is huge on lean testing. Validate the demand before you invest heavily.
How do you do that?
Usually by creating a very simple website, maybe just 1 or 2 pages, that presents a compelling offer for your product idea. Describe the benefits, who it's for, what problem it solves.
Like a sales page, but before the product exists?
Kinda, yeah. Or maybe just collecting email signups for launch notification. Then you drive a small amount of targeted traffic to it, maybe using Google ads or social media ads for a short period. See if people actually click, sign up, or even try to buy.
So you're testing the offer and the market interest, not the finished product yet.
Exactly. Minimum viable product thinking applied to the offer itself. Ferriss even mentions dry testing, like setting up an eBay auction with a high reserve price, or that simple email capture page. Get real data cheap and fast.
Minimizing risk. Smart. Okay, let's say the test looks promising, people are interested, then you build it, but how do you automate it? How do you become this remote control CEO?
That's about building the systems around the product. You need a self-correcting architecture. Think comprehensive FAQs on your website to handle common questions automatically.
Reduce customer support load.
Right. Maybe using a third-party fulfillment center if you do have a physical component or want print on demand for info products. Setting up reliable payment processors like Stripe or PayPal. Automating as much of the order processing and delivery as possible.
So you're not personally packing boxes or emailing download links?
Ideally, no. The goal is for the business to run smoothly with minimal day-to-day intervention from you.
He also mentioned something called the art of undecision. Sounds weird.
It's a bit counterintuitive, but it links back to Pareto, kinda. Offering fewer choices can actually boost sales and simplify your business massively. Too many options can confuse customers and add complexity for you.
So maybe just 1 or 2 core product versions instead of 10.
Could be, yeah. Or limiting customization. Keep it focused. Less management, potentially more profit on the core offering.
And guarantees. He talks about making them strong.
Oh yeah, big time. Moving beyond the standard money-back guarantee. He suggests bolder lose-win guarantees where the customer feels they literally can't lose by trying your product. It builds trust and reduces perceived risk for the buyer.
Makes the offer more compelling.
Definitely. And finally, for automation, there's outsourcing customer service, right?
Yeah.
For the questions the FAQ doesn't cover.
Yep.
Setting up systems so that initial customer contact can be handled remotely, maybe by a virtual assistant or a specialized service. Using autoresponders intelligently, perhaps an IVR system for phone inquiries to route calls efficiently. You only handle the exceptions.
Okay, so automation is about building that income-generating muse and then structuring it to run largely on its own.
That's the essence of it. Build it, test it, automate it.
Which brings us to the final letter in DL, L for liberation. This is the payoff, right? Getting the freedom.
This is where it all comes together. Taking the time and income you've hopefully freed up through elimination and automation and actually using it to live differently. Location independence, time freedom.
How do you actually get that freedom if you're still in a traditional job? That seems like a huge hurdle.
It can be. The book offers strategies mainly focused on negotiating remote work. Step 1 is usually become incredibly valuable to your company. Over-deliver. Make yourself indispensable.
So they want to keep you, even if you're remote.
Exactly. Then propose a trial period. Not let me work from home forever, but maybe, can we try me working remotely for 2 weeks or 1 day a week to prove I can maintain or even increase productivity? Frame it as a benefit to the company, cost savings maybe.
Demonstrate it works. Make it reversible. Less scary for the boss.
Right. It's about making it an easy yes, or at least an easy, let's try it.
And once you are liberated, location-wise, what about the practicalities? He mentions travel gear.
Just briefly, the emphasis is on minimalism and practicality. Carry only what you need, focus on versatile items, good tech for staying connected. Don't let your stuff weigh you down.
Which fits with the whole mini retirement idea versus just a short vacation.
You really contrast those. Short vacations can often be stressful, trying to cram everything in. Mini retirements are about longer, slower, more immersive experiences, really living somewhere else for a month, 3 months, 6 months.
More restorative, more enriching.
That's the argument. You get a deeper sense of freedom and understanding that a whirlwind tour allows.
But isn't that, like, incredibly expensive, living abroad for months?
Surprisingly, not always. The book touches on how the cost of living in many desirable places around the world can be significantly lower than in, say, major US or European cities. Your automated income might go much further elsewhere. Plus, tips on finding cheaper flights, longer-term rentals. It can be more feasible than you think.
Okay, so the finances aren't necessarily the biggest barrier. What about actually working while traveling? Staying productive?
Yeah, it mentions using remote access tools to log into work systems if needed. But also, structuring your Muse so it doesn't require constant input is key. Automation helps here again.
But there's another potential issue, right? Once you've eliminated tasks and automated income, what do you do with all that free time? The filling the void problem.
That's a really important point he raises. Suddenly, having huge chunks of unstructured time can be disorienting, even anxiety-provoking if you're used to being constantly busy.
The enemy is boredom, remember?
Exactly. So the book advises being proactive. Find new things to learn, new skills to develop, maybe dedicate time to volunteering or creative projects. Fill the void constructively with things that genuinely interest you, not just busy work.
Okay, so deal. Definition, elimination, automation, liberation. That's the core framework. But the book goes a bit further, right? Into mindset shifts around nonconformity.
Oh yeah. There's a great section tackling the common fears people have about leaving the conventional path.
Like what kind of fears?
Things like the fear of permanence, thinking any decision is irreversible, fear of financial ruin, obviously, fear of what friends and family will think, social disapproval, and the classic fear of having gaps on your resume.
Those all sound pretty legitimate.
They feel legitimate, for sure. But the book offers rebuttals. Like, most decisions aren't permanent. You can always go back or change course. Financial ruin can be mitigated with testing and planning. Resume gaps can be framed positively as valuable life experience. Social disapproval. Well, that takes confidence, but whose life is it anyway?
Good points. It requires courage, though.
Definitely. And part of maintaining that freedom requires learning to say no.
Protecting your time.
Crucial. Saying no to non-essential meetings, projects, social obligations that don't align with your priorities. It's not being selfish, it's being protective of the freedom you've worked to create.
Which links to the not to-do list idea.
Exactly. Instead of just adding more to your to-do list, focus on what you should stop doing. What unproductive habits can you eliminate?
Examples.
Like, do not check email first thing in the morning or last thing at night. Do not attend meetings without a clear agenda. Do not engage in gossip or unproductive conversations. Consciously eliminating the drains.
That's powerful. Focus on subtraction, not just addition.
And for the business side, there's the Margin Manifesto. Quick principles for maximizing profit with minimum effort.
Like what?
Things like niching down really tightly, charging a premium, limiting distribution channels to simplify, focusing on direct response marketing that's easily trackable. Basically, more principles for efficiency and automation in the business itself.
And there's even a more advanced automation strategy for email, outsourcing the whole inbox.
Yeah, that's like the ultimate level for some. Training a virtual assistant to manage almost all your email. They learn rules, categorize messages, draft replies, only escalate the absolutely critical stuff to you. Requires trust and good systems, but frees up enormous mental bandwidth.
Wow. Okay. And he includes real-life examples, too.
Yeah, the lifestyle design and action section is great. Stories of people who've actually done this stuff, negotiated remote work, built muses, taken mini retirements, makes it feel more real, more possible.
And finally, he recommends some foundational reading.
Yep. The fundamental 4 books he suggests reading before even tackling his book fully. Things like The Magic of Thinking Big, The E-Myth Revisited, Vagabonding, Less is More. They cover mindset, scalable business building, long-term travel, and minimalism, kind of setting the philosophical stage.
So it's part of a larger ecosystem of ideas.
Definitely. He builds on a lot of existing wisdom.
Okay, wow. We've covered a ton of ground from the 4-hour work week. Definition, elimination, automation, liberation, plus the mindset stuff.
It's packed with ideas, that's for sure.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, if you had to pull out, say, 2 key takeaways, things our listener could really start thinking about or acting on right now.
Good question. I think first it's the sheer power of just questioning your assumptions. Seriously asking yourself, is this 9 to 5 deferred life plan really what I want? Or is it just the default path? That questioning alone is huge.
Just opening up the possibility of alternatives.
Exactly. And second, maybe the impact of applying just 1 or 2 of those elimination principles. Like, seriously, try the 80-20 analysis on your work tasks for a week. Or commit to checking email only twice a day for 3 days. Small experiments.
See what happens?
Yeah, because applying Pareto or Parkinson's law, even imperfectly, can free up surprising amounts of time and energy pretty quickly. Time you can then use for, well, for living. So maybe a first step. Try that fear-setting exercise. Just spend 15 minutes on it for one thing you're hesitant about. Or identify one time-wasting activity and brainstorm how to cut it back this week.
Start small, build momentum. I like it. Really actionable advice.
Hope so.
Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with as you mull all this over. What if the biggest limitations holding you back aren't really external? Not your boss, not your finances, not your circumstances, but maybe they're the internal beliefs you hold about what's possible, about how life has to be lived. What could happen? What could you design for yourself if you really dared to challenge those core beliefs and define success entirely on your own terms?
Something to think about.
Definitely. We'd love to hear your thoughts, your reactions, any experiments you try based on this. Let us know down in the comments.